What's up, legalizers? You're tuned in to Cannabis Legalization News, your number one source for cannabis news on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today, we actually have a guest host that will be joining us. He is an educator and a horticulturalist and a leading expert over at Homegrown Cannabis Co. His name, maybe you've heard of him, is Kyle Kushman, and I could go on like that. But instead of that, let's go to the main story that we're going to be discussing. They've kind of taken cannabis off of the agenda for the presidential election with both President Trump, former President Trump, and then also the DEA head, Ann Milgram, kicking their hearing on rescheduling until after the election. But then President Trump saying that he supports the legalization of cannabis in the state of Florida, if done correctly. Let's bring on Miggy, our co-host for this trending story, and also our guest host, Kyle Kushman.
Good times.
What's happening, everybody? Good times.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Kyle, can you please, Miggy, give him the intro?
Well, I mean, like, again, you did a little semi, right? The guy's old G, High Times, original home grower. You know, there's many hats you wear, man. And can you break it down for yourself?
Break down what exactly? What
Like
Tom
who you
was
are?
who I am.
Yeah.
Who I am is I am now a legalizer. I never quite heard that term before, but I guess I've been a legalizer for 30 years now, and I'm just some guy that walked into a head shop one day, smoked a joint with the proprietor, who said, "You ever wanted to meet somebody at High Times?" And then I became the High Times pod dealer, and a staff journalist position opened up some years later, and I took that job, and here we are 25, almost 30 years later, and my life simply revolves around cannabis.
Yeah, as somebody who's like I can't get out of the industry, and like Kentucky closed yesterday, and Kentucky is going to be a very interesting. Welcome to the industry, Kentucky. I mean, we're really looking forward to helping great companies start up in Kentucky and provide cannabis to patients because they're that early. Like, isn't that interesting, Kyle? Like, you've been, and Miggy too, because like Miggy goes back to Prop 215 back in California, like almost 30 years ago now. It's now just getting to Kentucky, like 28 years later. And then I think with Schedule 3, you're going to see it getting to Indiana, Idaho, even. Utah. Well, I guess Utah has already got it. But like, there's some holdouts. Wyoming. Oh my goodness, Wyoming. But
only 3 people live there, so when they decide they want to smoke pot, then they'll smoke pot.
That's right. Or they'll be guilted out of the state. They'll be like, you used to be about the conservative principles. You mean of freedom? No, I mean of judgment. Jesus. The cornerstone of conservatives. Judging people. Yeah.
Well, you know, Kyle, you've been doing this for so long, right? With legalization, trying to create that path of like, and you know, tell oldest time, deschedule versus reschedule, right? What do you think about this new rescheduling thing as actually perhaps might be happening when it comes to progress for the plan?
Oh, geez, I just might say something that won't age well, but that's me. Look, you know, I've learned a lot over the last 20 years living in California and helping forward the passing of, you know, a lot of bills that some will say didn't help us as much as we would have liked to. And it sounds like rescheduling is another one of those things. But then the angel on my shoulder kind of says, yeah, but it's progress. You know, you're moving forward. It's further destigmatizing. You know, so yeah. I don't know the answer. I don't know how to tell.
Think about this. Think about this, Kyle. How far did hemp go after being let out of the barn in the past 5 years?
Wait.
Hemp.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
They went from CBD to Delta 8 to hemp, like clones on direct. Just we're going to airmail you clones. We're going to sell seeds. You guys got to have a seed company as well. And then just THCA flower. So like over the course of 5 years, it was like, oh, this is about hemp, to we're just straight selling weed. And so with Schedule 3, now imagine you don't have to do any of those loophole things. It is medical cannabis nationwide. And the industry that we're in
sounds
can
good.
just be like any other industry. Like you don't have IRC 280E. You don't want to believe the the overlay that I have for our dispensary, where it's like, no, this is the 1,000 square feet out of the 3,000 square feet of the whole rented space where the trafficking happens. Yeah. Because you want to segment it, because you can't deduct that shit, currently. But with Schedule 3, then it's just like, your seed shop.
Look, I think that all sounds really good and it should work, but for some reason it doesn't work, and it has something to do with what you said. Any other business. For some reason, the cannabis business may never ever be treated like any other business.
And I hope that's true for FDA compliance purposes. Because like the FDA sends these dunning letters to like the DEA, the Delta 8 people saying like, you're not allowed to do that. And so they move it to Schedule 3 and it's still illegal because there's this other law called the FDCA, like the Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act. And so marijuana, now a Schedule 3 drug, has medical purposes, but it's never been approved. So you still can't transport it interstate. And so like, you'll still have all these little fiefdoms all across, like, welcome Kentucky, you're a new fiefdom. Yeah. And it won't be able to have interstate commerce until you fix that problem. And then maybe it'll be the only Schedule 3 drug that has its own pipeline, similar to what we do with alcohol with the distribution systems. So like it's the 3-tier regulation. There's the producers, there's the retailers, and there's the distributors. And so that distributor for beer that you buy, like I'm in the Midwest, and so Budweiser is in St. Louis and Miller Brewing is in Milwaukee, and they kind of like supply beer nationwide. But then there's a syndicate of license holders in different states that are able to facilitate interstate traffic. So that's kind of where I hope we're finally getting to. But it takes forever.
So unsexy. Business. Kyle, I mean,
it's the most unsexy cannabis channel on YouTube.
Maybe there's a good acronym in there.
Oh yeah, but like for me, Kyle, as an advocate when it comes to like the plant and the law, right? I'm a consumer type person, right? In the end, it's consumer protections, consumer just ability to get what they want when they want. Like walking the store here in Washington State where I live, I just walk into a store, I show my ID, it's not a system. I give them whatever, how much for whatever quality I can afford at that time. But it's a store, it's nothing else. But like back in the day, dude, like first off, I smoke a lot of weed. That's why I put the thing in there, but I don't grow. But like, I don't also like, I'm not like Tom's a ganjier, right? He's done the whole program, terpenes, all that shit. But like, there's probably several strains I can call cultivars that I can name and be like, yeah, that's what it was. So strawberry coffee, one of them. And then I love the story behind it where, you don't say that you grew it. You just say, hey, I helped champion this thing. But and then like Blue Dream, right? There's just certain ones I can go, yeah, that's what that is. And that's the point of, I think, and legalization. Rescheduling it is going to enable this nuance where people can, because like before that, to achieve the shit that I know, there's a lot of backyard shaking hands and illegal, like, I hope it is. Everything was fire when I was growing up in Jersey, dude. Like as a kid, like if it was good weed, it was fire. If it was shitty weed, it came from Mexico. That was it. Like, did you ever think about like the proper, like how Tom speaks about the business and how shit's gonna be layered out with markets and shit? Was this anything you even thought about, right? When you just wanted to grow weed and sell it?
I spent only 5 years as a actual staff journalist for High Times. I couldn't do more than 5 years actually living in New York. And so this was 1999 to 04. And legalization had not happened anywhere. It was still only California, and I think California and Colorado. And obviously, we sat around and talked a lot about, legalization and how we were going to get there, and how we wanted it to look and everything. But the funny thing was, and I've gotten this admission from several of my old staff friends, over the years. We all keep in touch. That it's just funny that we never not only talked about it, but we never really bothered to try to picture what it would be like after legalization. Like, we couldn't picture the debacle. We couldn't picture that 25 years of a drug war of trying to stamp out an industry didn't work. But then after 2 years of legalization, the industry was decimated.
Mm.
Like,
Hell yeah.
It
Wow.
makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why, like, there's this debate about limited markets, unlimited markets, and then markets that have like gaps in the markets. And so, like, gaps in the markets can be like with California and also New York. There's a lot of licenses, and then there's a lot of illicit sales, and there's a lot of illicit business that's going on. And then there's Arizona, where there's not that many licenses, and the illicit businesses are crimes that they enforce. And so Arizona's industry has weathered this storm of the recession that's been in the cannabis industry much better because they've been insulated, because they have this limited market where they'll shut down, Delta 8 or THCA flower. Missouri's the Midwest example of Arizona somewhat, but a little bit more open. And then you have like a Michigan, which has kind of made, California look bad a certain amount, but there you have no excuse but to go legit. And so, like, in California, you still have an excuse to not go legit because you want to go put it on a truck to sell it out east, or like, somewhere else in the world, because it's Napa Valley, like, it's premium stuff. It's the California exotics. It commands a better price somewhere else. What do you want me to do? It's a dump truck of money to my door. Come on.
But see, this is what I meant by they're never going to treat it like a normal industry. And what I mean is, a normal industry, you sit back and you make insane evaluations about both the regulation and the taxation, so that the industry can both thrive and survive. None of that is going on, nor will it ever go on. And that's the conversation I want to have. Why? How do we develop a complete, I'm talking about the overarching that we're trying to fit in. We're trying to fit into some kind of system, some kind of framework of laws and licenses and all this stuff. Why is it only affecting the cannabis industry so negatively when we're supposedly working within the same framework, but we can't make it work?
Well, I think it's the scheduling. And so like we've taken international law and we foolishly placed it into our own Controlled Substances Act. So we are governed to international law because it is our law as they've done it. And so that's why Biden had to issue the order to reschedule, because he's working within the parameters of the law.
Oh, wait, what did you mean? What did you explain what you mean by we've taken in international law?
We've taken the schedule, the single convention of narcotics from 1961 and engrafted it, engrafted it into our Controlled Substances Act, so that you cannot reschedule, Mr. Biden or any president or anybody, the DEA can't reschedule something or drop it off the schedules if it takes us out of compliance with that convention, which treated marijuana like opium.
Well, so all of that makes sense, and I'm glad that I helped clarify that a little bit, but that still has nothing to do why in a state that is so pro-marijuana like California, and so we decided to go forward with creating mechanisms to legalize it and capitalize, to make it into an actual business.
Yeah.
But we've X'd ourselves out of being an actual business through some insight, through some capitulation.
Yeah.
I don't understand and that doesn't have anything to do with the federales wanting to do it legal. Or okay, so it has something, but you would think in Colorado,
but you can't. And so like we live in an interstate, it's the United States. And so it's like Europe, where it's the European Union. So we live in a United States. And so individual states are not allowed to like just create their own thing that goes on. And I sue over this, because it's called the Dormant Commerce Clause. When a state's like, we're only going to help this state, it's like, fuck you, you're not. And then we file lawsuits, and we typically win unless they say it doesn't count because it's a Schedule I substance. And so when they change it from Schedule I to Schedule III, then this issue, this quagmire that why hasn't this happened, starts to become a reality. And it may actually start to become a thing, because now the rules in Tennessee are the rules in Texas, and they're the rules in Colorado. And so when those rules start to become standardized, you can start to enforce laws much better in our country.
I was look, I wanted to point out that, look, I'm being like devil's advocate here for all you people who think that I'm just rushing to be for all the new laws and new scheduling. And I think I generally am, like I said, I'm with progress, and progress very rarely happens in big leaps. It happens in little steps. That's how progress happens. That's how evolution happens, and it takes millions of years. Progress for us humans happens in little tiny steps. But everything that you're pointing out to me from a legal perspective is still leaving me with lots of doubt that anything is going to address the problem that somehow the cannabis business as an industry is allowed to be treated more harshly and maligned to the point where it cannot physically exist. And no other, it's like the right, I used to say, recreational drug users are the last segment of society that it's perfectly okay to prejudice against. And that has bled over into, oh yeah, we're going to legalize it, but we're going to bleed you to death. And so regardless of how fast or forward it moves on federal, the discussion on look, I'm not a lawyer, Tom, and I'm not arguing with anything you say. I think I'm just deepening the conversation in that, California's latest proposition, was it 65, the one that made commerce legal? Do I have the number right? I don't get the propositions always right.
Oh yeah, 64.
64, thank you. And basically all that was about was all these people that are trucking in backpacks of weed into the dispensaries and making transactions, and that's illegal, obviously, but we're allowing that because that's the only way we can fulfill the prophecy of Prop 215, which was to allow sick people to have medicine. So we went ahead and we wrote a law that says that involves all this metrics, and you have to keep tabs of every plant. You have to weigh every plant that you chop down and throw away, and all of these things that don't happen on beer farms and don't happen on other crops that they grow for medicines. And maybe it does, but there is a backdraft. There is some sort of jealousy. It used to be, oh, you guys are going to make $1 million overnight. No, we're not going to let that happen. Industries take decades to build up and blah, 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 blah. So we're going to make I don't have my finger on it. Do you?
Taxes, man.
No, people don't care about us. Like 80% of people don't care about us, and they look down on us. Like 50% of people look down on us. And then taxes, yes, there's also that. But like, if I was opening a strip club, I would have been able to renovate that old Steak and Shake, but I'm not. We have a cannabis license, and so like we weren't able to get the Steak and Shake because a Hindu church, whose Vishnu is a god, and whose users worship the cannabis plant,
how many times have we moved?
Was too close to the locations that we wanted to renovate and turn into a dispensary, and so there's no way we could have gotten it zoned. because they don't care about us. But it's 20 past the hour in New York, or actually in any of the time zones throughout the world. So that means it's 4:20 somewhere. We're going to take a quick break, and I hope you do too. And we'll be back with Kyle Kushman in just a second.
Oh, yeah. You want to share your QR code?
No, we don't have that.
You know what coffee and weed is called?
No,
hippie speedball.
Yeah, hippie speedball. Yeah. You know what?
Really?
You know what a drug user speedball is?
Heroin and cocaine.
Exactly. So this is the heroin and this is the cocaine.
It is, but there's drugs. It's all drugs, though. Like coffee is a drug.
But let's not put everything into the same tent, everybody. We're trying to educate the rubes who already don't like us.
You ready?
And so,
you can help me come up with we need a new name. See, because as you might have guessed, I'm smoking an equatorial variety strawberry cough. So this is not heroin. This is actually crack. So what are we going to call it? This is crack and cocaine. So we need a new name because there's no up and down. It's just
it's like a hyperball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a super saiyan. And we'll try to appeal to younger people because you should always make I'm not even going to say that. It's 20 minutes past the hour. So like YouTube's no longer reading this unless they've upped their algorithm. But still, we are trying to not get turned off, everybody, because thank you for tuning in. We got a great guest. We're talking about some news that happened this past week in, we got some Illinois news. Well, here, I got that one's not as good as. Go ahead. I want to talk about the gun one after that. No,
the gun one's a great one.
It's not out of Rockford, but it's just more like how their social equity program's working.
Well, I got to bring up this topic just for the clicks and the likes and the hates, and I'm gonna do my best impression, right? As everyone knows, I was and will be again the most respected law and order president in the U.S. history. Period. We will take.
You are not back. Good at doing Donald Trump. For example, I want you to be very upset with imagine you're the worst participant of a restaurant ever, and you are just trying to take your waiter down a peg and sound like you're full of it, like you being full of it, and then go.
Here we go. Wait.
That's your motivation. You're stuck up.
We will take our streets back by being tough and smart on violence. And see, I'm giving him more of a fucking narrator's voice now. I don't know, but anyways,
who was that?
That's Donald Trump yesterday. Donald Trump yesterday. He birthed a tweet baby on Truth Social, which again is not also a tweet, and it's not word salad anymore. It's just here's a word dump, and so it was a word dump about him, and he even put fentanyl in there, and that's one of the things where. Whatever reason, people talk about our industry and how we're trying to legalize cannabis so it's safe and pure and everybody can have access to it. And they're like, fentanyl. And you're like, what the fuck? What does fentanyl have to do with cannabis legalization? Yeah. What the heck? And so he's worried that people are going to, if you buy it on the street, get weed laced with fentanyl.
Look, let's go back to my
I mean, we take advice from Donald Trump on everything else in the world. So of course, we should take advice on, how our drugs should be monitored and used and legalized. Of course.
I find it funny though.
I don't use drugs. Let me tell you how to regulate them.
Well, that's the thing, dude. So I watch. I'm a what do you call it when you like pain misogynist? Yeah, I'll watch these fucking speeches sometimes, and just 2 days ago, he was talking about why there's no drugs in Philippines because they kill them. It's all bullshit. But this is
here is a quote 2 or 3 days ago. He was standing with a microphone in his mouth, and he said, in some states, they let you execute a baby after birth. And that's just unacceptable. So when somebody says something like that, to obviously try to scare people into voting for them, they're not worth any further discussion in my mind.
I agree with you. But like, if you listen to Donald Trump, he's never had, how are you doing? Like, how was your day? It was all right. No, it was the worst day. It was a travesty of a day. This day has jeopardized the safety of any. If you have this day, you will never have a day again. And like, it is just like borderline personality disorder as a candidate, folks. That is Donald Trump.
Look at his smile.
Have somebody, exactly.
Look at
it's
that
like
smile.
he was coached into that smile. That's not a real smile.
They're all, sir. No one fucking says this to you, man. But like, this is back to the like rescheduling thing. The federal, like, this is what he said was so fecal because it was just about Florida, right? And it wasn't even like, yes, I'm Florida. It was like some bullshit statement of like gaslighting you first, telling you it has to be the right way. Well, what's the fucking right way, motherfucker? Because there is no to get to where we want, right? Rescheduling has to happen, right? I firmly believe that we are further ever than we ever were because eventually, right, Kyle, hemp and weed are going to make a baby. The marijuana cannabis law and the hemp law, they're going to come out and make chemp. And then it's going to be like, it's a fucking plant. It's all it is. You can either use it for fuel, T-shirts, paper, or have a good Friday night. Just depends on how it's grown, what the purpose is. You know, eventually we're going to get there. But it's still going to be 15, 20 years, you know.
Look, listening to you, Mig, it's like, it really dawned on me. And all of this shit, all of this fighting, all of this, it's all, you know, we used to believe, we were taught to believe, all of us, that the wars were fought over oil. None of these wars are fought over oil. None of them. They're all fought over religion. They're all fought over boundaries because people have different gods. And the shit that we're talking about now, it's the only reason people hate cannabis is because religion says you're not allowed to have so much fun. It's the only reason left. Nobody is afraid.
Why do you think all the Baptists are against it? It's all the religious people that are like, think about the children. I mean, you're right, you know?
You know, and it bleeds out into all the other political subjects that we can unfortunately get into, whether it's book banning, whether it's fucking gerrymandering, whether it's all of that shit is run and motivated underneath by religious people who think that they're more right than all the other people around them.
That's why I can't vote Republican, because they always say it's about like conservative principles and free markets and like, you know, capitalism and patriotism and shit. And then at the end, it's all about church. And I'm like, what the fuck is that, guys? But this is the word. It's a word dump more than a word salad. Yeah. And so we shared it. And so did he. He just birthed this out on August 31st at 7:05 a.m., which I'm assuming is East Coast time. And it's, as everyone knows, I was and will be again the most respected law and order president in U.S. history. I can't believe he didn't do an exclamation point on that. Anyway, we will take to our streets by being tough and smart on violence and all other types. And then he has a comma splice. This is wrong. He should not have. It should not be types, comma, of crime. And then why is crime a defined term? You capitalize crime. What the fuck are you doing there, Donald? But in Florida, like so many other states that have already given their approval, personal amounts of marijuana will be legalized for adults with Amendment 3. Like, he's just proclaiming this. Like, he's not saying I support legalizing it. He's just saying it will be legalized.
Yeah.
Whether people like it or not, this will happen through the approval of voters. Again, he's not saying that he approves of it. He's just saying, like, duh. Like, thank you, Captain Obvious. I see you're wearing shoes.
Gaslight.
And so, yeah, right. But then it's like, so it should be done correctly. We need the state legislature to responsibly create laws to prohibit the use of it in public spaces. He's still not saying that he supports it. So we do not smell marijuana wherever we go. Because that's what the biggest problem is with marijuana.
Right.
Some people don't like the way it smells. Thank you. Yeah, right. Like we do in many Democrat-run cities. And so, like, if a city smells like it's weed, it's Democrat-run, according to this tweet.
Look at all those words.
Yeah.
Look at all those words. He doesn't solve anything.
He hasn't said anything.
Let
People
alone
are saying that he's believing it.
But he's supposed to be a leader, and he's supposed to be tweeting out things that are going to change people's lives for the better. And he doesn't ever fix anything. And you know what?
No.
You know what, guys? I'm a bit of a soothsayer, and I'm telling you, Trump is toast, and we're going to witness his implosion over the next 30 to 40 to 60 days. Oh no, just let it sink in, because it's a wonderful thought. And he's made his own bed. He's completely made it. He has nowhere to retreat to. He doesn't have a bunker.
No friends.
He has nobody to rely on. His family, except for the two boys who are like, please don't ruin everything we have for the next 40. We're going to be on this earth for another 40, 50 years. Please don't ruin everything, Dad. Leave something unexploded. Jesus. It's really a calmness has come over me recently. And
if you want Schröderfruden, Kyle, if you want Schröderfruden, that's a German word for someone else's misery is your pleasure. I watch his stocks. And every day it's just like, I mean, you're not a real businessman, right? It's just everything's bad. That's like this whole bad. If you're into money, you would see this as a bad idea coming up. But also, if you're into money, we with that recent, like when Tom in the beginning where we talked about the rescheduling being postponed, the hearing, fucking stocks dropped. Fucking cannabis stocks. Why would they pivot? Why would they drop? This is the first time I saw them ever drop. Like,
oh my God. You know what? Seriously, somebody give me an answer to this. If you or say I don't know, like me. I own a couple of stocks and I play with the stock market only because I have an IRA that I started way back in High Times days when they would contribute $2 for every $1 that you took out of your paycheck and put into an IRA, which is money that you can't touch until you retire. Yeah. Your employer would donate $2 every one. So that's free money on top of it not being taxed if you keep it there until you're 65. So this is the terrible, regulated days of when, but anyways, I'm just saying.
We want to do something like that because there's SEP IRAs for owners of these things, but you're right. You need an industry so they can provide these benefits for their employees. Yeah. And the way that they've got it set up, it makes it really difficult to provide these types of benefits when you're in a market state like a California or a New Mexico or even a Michigan or an Oklahoma.
So that's what needs to be on the top of the agenda of both lawmakers and even businessmen as they make agreements with local towns and local and however that works, it needs to be pointed out that there needs to be room. Every business says, oh, everybody's got to wet their beak, blah, blah, fucking blah, Well, the cannabis industry, like you just said, we're used to an industry where everybody was just naturally taken care of. From the people who cut the weed down, to the people who watered it, to the people who trimmed it, to the people who sold it. Everybody was taken care of, and it's a community. And now, we're almost the antithesis of that because it's just not being dealt with properly.
Well, I saw you today on the James Loud podcast, and you guys talked about culture, which, I think the weird thing about what legalization that's unrolling and how business rolls out, like Tom and I are friends because of Facebook, because we both believe in the plant, but Tom's obviously, you must be surprised though. He's a fucking fish lover. He's a fish head, but like, he's not this flower wielding hippie.
Hey man, it's a Dick Sunday set.
Yeah.
People in Colorado aren't turning in.
Why would I be surprised?
I was, at least I was, right? Like I just saw this straight white guy, laced white guy, and like I made my assumptions, but like we've been friends for such a long time.
He looks like Jim Carrey.
Oh yeah, but the longer hair now. When we first met, he was service. Like straight lace. I mean, he was the epitome because that's where we met when he was still involved in a real regulated. And I hate to say real because it's just recognized, right? Something that because cannabis industry is real, but it's one of those things that, like, dude, when Kyle Kushman isn't your name, Miggy 420 is not my name. These are not. You know what it is. You just some dawn. So business has existed since the dawn of man, whether they exchange money for it or I just didn't kill you for it, whatever.
cannabis is the first socially acceptable recreational drug. Now, you can classify alcohol as a drug chemically, but it's not a drug in my mind because it doesn't have medicinal uses. A drug has medicinal uses first and foremost. That's where we get that's what a drug is. Cannabis is the first one that is accepted both as a medicine in one society, and then there is another complete society that accepts it as recreation. And it's that nexus, okay, that is the confusement of all the people that have a place in not just going along with it. You know, there's something different about this. They can't put their head on it. They can't put their finger on it. But that's what it is. That's the only major difference.
You ever see that meme where it's like the true element is crime? Like that's the best part of whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, the secret ingredient. Yeah.
But that's true. Yeah. But I think, see, for me as an activist person trying like I've been, just doing this, speaking about it for a long time, and have met some legends, a lot of people who have passed, right? This unfortunate thing about this plant is a lot of the people, the reason why you're fucking here is because a lot of sick older people or sick, just wiser people that understand.
People that have brass balls and were in the 70s and 80s and doing shit. It's like, if you get caught with this, that's heavy time. And they're okay with that.
Yeah.
Did you guys take note of the movie that Homegrown is producing now?
No. What are you guys doing?
So they got the rights to Richard DeLisi, who is the longest serving cannabis prisoner. He just got released after 32 years, serving 32 years of a 94-year sentence.
Dude. Jesus.
And so they're doing a story about his life. It's called Santa Marta Gold, the Rich DeLisi story. And to just think that families just again and again, lives just ripped apart, because of a plant, and right. not a cocaine plant that doesn't become dangerous until you refine it with harsh chemicals,
Yeah, he wasn't moving coca leaves, but then he was basically moving. He's just moving a flower. He's moving a horticultural crop.
He got the same and even a harsher penalty than many who were pushing cocaine and or heroin. Again, there you have it. Cannabis people being treated in a way that just is not, it's just not congruent.
Yeah.
Congruous?
It doesn't, it makes no factual sense. So it's incongruent with reality. And so you understand how it is to live and be alive and the cannabis plant. And then you understand with the laws, and evidently we're a nation of laws and not objective facts, which kind of is scary, by the way. And so then you get people getting thrown into jail for all those times. But that sounds like a pretty wicked movie about DeLisi's life. When is that coming out?
Well, Nate Hammer, he's the guy that does all the production for me on Homegrown.
Cool.
He's a fabulous videographer. He's making I'm not sure if they've fully decided if it's going to be a full-on documentary or a biopic or a combination of both. But they're just there's a big gala happening, Last Prisoner Project in New York on the 23rd. And they're going to be running a sizzle reel of it there. And I think they're actually looking for investors to they really want to make this into a biopic.
Sure. Very cool.
Oh, yes. That's another reason why Schedule 3 is so important. You see, we don't have marketing money when you have to pay your taxes on gross income as opposed to gross profits as opposed to net income. And so you switch with the Schedule 3 and suddenly it's tax avoidance to be an executive producer on that movie. It's a great advertisement for your brand and for what you could do product placement of your, look, I don't think anybody from GTI is watching, But if you're watching your bullshit products, that you try to keep other stores from selling, they could be product placement in there. And you just can't, they aren't allowed to do the tax right now. And so everybody just gets screwed in the industry. We look at hemp and we're like, man, you guys get taxed on net revenue. That is neat.
There's a complete juxtaposition that is just fucking hilarious. It's that before legalization, guys like me that were getting righteous dollars for the pounds that we grew, in NorCal neighborhoods, all up and down California, they were giving $500 for a pie at the bake sale, so that they knew that their kids were going to have new uniforms to play for the basketball team. So we're the only community that's willing to self-tax ourselves. We're so willing. That's how we got rounded into, oh yeah, we'll give you 25% on top of 10%, on top of 10%, and you end up paying 50% in taxes for your product, because we're so used to giving,
and
we
got screwed. Because back when it was off the books, it was cash off the books. Prices were up here because it was not yet what it is now. And so I'm sure Al Capone made a lot of money when he was dealing alcohol illegally. It was probably worth a lot more money, but they put him down after they legalized it, that and syphilis. But still, it's one of those things where if you create a set of rules and there's a game, that aspect of it can go away.
Not just a game, but an equal game, right? This is why rescheduling is so important, because it creates a platform. It's an equal game where, like Tom is saying, everybody's looking at hemp right now.
There is no other game in town. There's no other game. We have to play within the framework that creates laws, and that
we got to create a limited market at the interstate level. Because then what that will do is, just like OPEC, we will control the supply, we will control the price. And so we can...
Isn't it like it's always happened with cannabis? Just overnight, it's almost like bewitched. You're going to wiggle your nose and go like this. And all of a sudden we're going to be like, oh, it's all, people are buying licenses for international shipments of cannabis. Yeah. And it happened overnight because it really is no big deal. It really is. There are no unassociated hazards with this product, more so than there are with fucking bananas or tomatoes.
Right. And all those people are dying of boar's head meat right now from listeria or something. And ain't nobody dying from what we're going to play right now. We're going to look at some weed. This is what we're fighting for. It's safe, by the way.
Oh, yeah. We play a little game, name that strain. This one is Frosty.
It's a hybrid made from a genetic cross of the Fire OG and the White. Taking you guys back, the White. Where did you guys first see that coming up? Unfortunately, smell-o-vision has not yet been invented, but Kyle is still giving it a shot. Yeah,
I got the honker for it, so I figured I'd give you the imagery.
I was gonna say I can see Kyle just being like, "Yeah, I know that guy."
Can taste weed and smell weed better because of the honker. I always wondered those types of things. If everybody's got their own random skill sets, you don't even know them sometimes.
Know thyself. That is the key to life.
That is a good one. Who said that?
And high is life.
That's true. Oh, that's close. Yeah, I guess that's it. Huh? Or that's the closest. We're missing the OG part.
Fire OG.
Get some weed.
Also known as Wi-Fi OG. This is like apples these days. If you want to start an apple orchard, good luck. But if you want to like really start an apple orchard, you got to get into plant patents. So you have your apple orchard and shit, and then you make Honeycrisp apples and you patent that noise. That's what Minnesota did 30 years ago. That's what you have to do. Like you would have to, the brand is in the name. And so like, have you seen, because like strawberry cough, Kyle, if you would have called that something else, what would that have done to sales? Or like, how did that name come about? And then did that name help the delta on the sales quotient?
Well, you know, I didn't name it because you know I didn't create it.
Right.
So I didn't name it. You know, I just like the way it's portrayed in Children of Men. If you haven't seen Children of Men with Clive Owen and Michael Caine. Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And it's a like a post-apocalyptic thriller, you know, about when humans suddenly become sterile and they can't have babies anymore.
That's right.
And Michael Caine, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, Clive goes to visit Michael Caine. He's living out in the woods, and he sits down after a meal and everything, and he gives them a joint, and they light it up, and Clive Owen hits it, and Michael Caine says to him, "Cough." And he looks at him and goes, "What?" He goes, "It's strawberry cough, cough." And he goes, and then the camera looks at Michael Caine and pans back behind him. And he goes, "It's a field of cannabis in his greenhouse." He goes, "It's all strawberry cough."
Yeah. Clones, man.
You know, the name is oddly, I don't know, it's just, normally when I pick a name that's a little bit more positive and makes you laugh, but that's a good one. That's a really good one, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, I think it is. And then that's one of the things where I'm not in the production side of the game. I'm barely in retail. I'm still not in retail. According to my license, I'm not allowed to do retail until I'm operational. But I would A/B test every strain that I put out. If I was making the stuff, A/B test the name of every strain I'm putting out, and just be like, well, that one sold this one sold that. So you were wrong. But we're calling it this.
Strawberry cough though has strawberry notes. So I mean, like things come down to like what the actual terpene, you know, like how we're talking about. There's going to be these 50 phytums of cannabis. Well, you're going to have 50 terroirs, right? 50 ways of growing it. You know, Kyle's talked about how he's giving strawberry cough to other people and it comes back weird, right? Like it's not the same that you know.
Morphine.
But it still is, yeah. So like
morphine. Think of it like STDs. So every time you pass around plants, you know, I'm not talking nowadays. Back in the days, nobody had ideal conditions. Okay, everybody's schmeckle was dirty. We were growing in dirty basements and dirty attics, and you know, so you pass it around, and every clone's not this really super healthy.
Means wants.
Schmeckle
or schwanz.
Is Yiddish.
Schmeckle, I'm assuming, is
schwanz.
Schwanz, yes. Right.
There you go.
But thank you, Kyle, for incorporating Yiddish into the conversation.
So morphing is like, it's like passing it around. You if you do it too much, you end up with an STD, and that's what happened with cannabis. It's so adaptive that it, you know, if you continue to clone a mother under, you know, certain conditions where it's being attacked by a virus or a mold or a fungus, you know, you lose things, and people at some point started calling that genetic drift. But it was really just the passing around of genetics between people who had far less than optimal conditions. They were so far away from putting it in a tissue culture and making everything realign and grow really fast, or that it really was just like passing around STDs. That's what that's how I like.
That's pretty cool. But like, you know, with the plant, it's like the whole "you are what you eat" thing, right? Like, it's not just the microbials, it's the shit from the dirt, the soil, it's everything that is, you are eating whatever this thing has eaten, or smoking rather, right? So, and then even like for you, I've heard people say flush, don't flush. Is that a thing for you? Because I believe in flushing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even regardless of whether you think that you're flushing anything out, the simple fact is that the last week of the plant or more could be 2 weeks, depending on how fat, you know, whether you're indoors or outdoors, how fast the rate of photosynthesis has been all along, the plants are not in need of any nutrients during the final phases of ripening, and because they have nutrients within. So why continue to feed them when they have the food that they need within? And that's what helps, draw out the food, and you get really, really good fade and striations and fall colors as bright as anything I've ever seen outdoors. But I will preface that, I say, having said that, today's synthetic nutrients are nothing like synthetic nutrients from even just 10 years ago. And it all comes down to the inputs, which are much cleaner now, and they've been specialized, since the turn of the century and the Industrial Revolution, when people just figured out how to feed large crops and create these synthetic salts. They have far lower levels of heavy metals, like far lower, and that's what it's all about. It comes down to heavy metals in your food and in your produce and in anything. Once you get past all of the other 3 and 4 syllable shit that you eliminate, it comes down to nickel, cadmium, mercury, and lead. And
tiny little versions of like little nickels and little, like, that's actual metal, right? Like, I think people don't forget that, like, in these plants that's organic, right? And then you've got this thing called veganic, which is like the super organic, correct? Like microbial. Like, you can take this thing, because when you inhale this plant, see, I'm an asthmatic, and as I said, I smoked a lot of weed, and then some weed can give me a bad experience in the sense of create an asthma attack. Well, I'm like, I fucking wasn't weed. Somebody did something, right? Maybe there was some Eagle 22. I don't know. But I'm not dead, So hey,
my wife, I've been with my wife for going on, I think, almost 12 years now, 11 or 12 years. We've been married for like 8, going on 9. And not only that, she has an adult autistic son that lives with us at home, Alex. He's almost 40 now. He's like 39. And when I first met them, Alex didn't smoke weed, and he had a couple of different medications that he took. And Susie didn't smoke weed because she got migraines. And then she tried my weed that had really super low levels of heavy metals, like parts per billion rather than parts per million. And she was able to smoke my weed and not get migraines off of it. And so she's the total barometer now. I mean, like, she can take one hit of, and it can be organic, and it doesn't matter if it's grown with some fucking dirty guano, from an island that's an e-waste island where they bury all the electronic waste from boatloads of stuff, and there's all kinds of mercury in it now. Yeah. And the shit coming out the ends of the animals, I used to say this all the time, isn't as clean as it used to be, And so, organics is something that has to be sourced really carefully. And, veganics was even something that had to be sourced really carefully. And so that's what it all comes down to now. It's aggregate. It's the total aggregate consumption of all of the negative things in your environment. And whether it's eating a little bit of fast food, or just even French fries, making French fries at home.
They've done studies on that with the heavy metals that are in fast food. So my girl's on all that stuff. She sent me a terrible article about, like, how you said it comes out of the rear ends. That's kind of typically how, like, animals poop, by the way. And so, like, and a lot of the stuff that they have in there is bad. And then they recycle that into other fertilizers. And so they kind of concentrate the problem that's there. So if there is some negative input that's there, like a heavy metal or some other poison, you're just exacerbating it. And then plastics now are just pretty much everywhere.
It's in your brain.
Which is
it's floating around in our brain. It's in our testicles. We're making babies with it.
But we're stain resistant. They just wipe off. They're cleaner. I'm kidding. Yeah.
No, but this plant is symbiotic when it comes to, like, what you getting good plant. And this is the problem with the legislation sometimes is, Like Illinois, we got a store coming up. There are not patient prices, right? This plant is medicine, can help a lot of people, but it has, and I think if a federal thing were to happen, it gives everybody an even playing field. It'll shake up the markets in each state. Tom's a big fan of limited licenses. I'm all like, let everybody have a chance. Just give me $100.
No, and then again, Schedule 3, you cannot. Hey, if Congress wants to get off their duff and do their job, then you're right. Here's the thing. They do not. They want to collect their paycheck. They want to tell the other guy is an evil, crazy man or person, whoever.
So guess what?
And then they want to win again. Yeah.
I have the answer. I have the answer for all of you.
Do it.
Is it
grow your own.
Ideally.
That's also very good. Growing your own, very important. Control your inputs. But
it doesn't take devoting your life to it like some of us do. It's so funny because I have so much trouble pleasing everybody online now with my little home garden,
Oh,
and the little experiments that I do. And these new kids, after their first grow, they're growing these wonderful buds and these wonderful genetics. And somehow that means that I shouldn't continue to keep teaching people how to keep it simple and do it at home and all that. But, it's the most important thing. If I could say anything after all of this, is that anybody can grow their own. You don't have to figure it. It's like life. You don't have to figure anything out on one day. Just make good decisions. Make a decision to grow and do it, and grow one plant or two or four or five or six or whatever is comfortable, and yield whatever you yield off of it, and learn how to grow a healthy plant, same as you would with your ficus or my money tree back here behind us. Just grow a healthy plant and harvest it for yourself. And whatever that is, whether it's 2 joints or whether it's 2 ounces, you're going to be so appreciative of it. You're going to want to do it again.
That's right. I mean, and then you're going to want to grow something else, because you're going to have plenty of weed, and you're going to be like, hey, you know what? I don't have tomatoes. We had a 23.6 ounce, and so 23 pound, 23.6 pound black diamond watermelon that I didn't grow. My fiance grew. She did, and so but we had it, and perfect, great. And then all the tomatoes that come out and all the other stuff that you can grow. You can then avoid all these problems that are out there, all these contaminants that are compounding that you read about every day in the news, and you are avoiding them because you're controlling the inputs of your body.
Look, there's no use screaming about it when you have an answer, and you can't. I understand we all got to vent sometime. Here's another word: we all kibitz sometimes. That's just venting. It doesn't mean we're really upset, but when you have an answer, I just grew a wall of lettuce. I got this machine called a Vertifarm, and I plugged it in, and they sent me some lettuce plugs, and I poured some nutrients in it, and they were synthetic, by the way. I don't care. And I pH'd it once, and then I topped it off with water. And the next thing you know, me and my family are eating wall-to-table lettuce, 3 different types of lettuce for 2 months. It was fantastic. I just had to grow some weed in it. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm growing weed in it.
Yeah.
I would have to say
I love those. And so we have a trellis. And so and then it's like the pots, and then I use Athena. I'm hoping they have clean newts. I'm assuming Athena has clean newts. Athena, if you have dirty newts, please tell me. But and so they will just become beasts. And then you get about 3 months out of a lettuce seed. And they'll get about this tall. They'll bolt over the time. But yeah, you're able to, your 5x5 tent doesn't just have to grow weed. You could be growing wonderful things for your family. Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, it's, and the great thing, these LEDs, you don't know what a gem that is these days. You can set that up pretty much anywhere, and you can use a little stand-up air conditioner. You don't have to throw things in the window, 16,000 BTU air conditioners, because you're trying to fight bulbs that put off 1,500 degrees each, and if you touch it, you end up with a tattoo on your back. I got one right there. I'm not going to show you.
Seriously, you got burned by a bulb back in the day? Like,
Yeah, those vertical parabolics, you know?
yeah, but like in the closet or some shit, like, or like a small tent type thing. Is that what you had it in?
Dude, I've done what I'm saying is now you can have a small space and just have room for a 4x4 by 6 foot tall tent. And you can hang a little 250 watt hydrofarm light in that. And you can put one plant below it and train it and play with it and get 2 ounces of weed in 75 days with one plant.
You know, I 100% agree that everybody should have a right to grow. Like, there should be this entitlement. Like, it is an entitlement, right? The fucking plant, right? It should be a thing. But
fortunately, it's a privilege.
But not just that, but like, you know, people should be allowed to in their apartments, in their backyard, right? But there are things called like shitty landlords and bad like contracts with, like, say, military getting services or something, like, or social services type things, right? These things can all be fucked by you just having one little plant, which is unfortunate, right? Because you're just trying to grow medicine, understand it better. But I think rescheduling it will help lead to those protections where people who have seeds and buy them can just do it freely and talk about it, because there's got to be networks and all
I'm
that
with
shit.
you. I am totally. You have to take the incremental steps to legalize it, and rescheduling it seems like. I mean, what else are they going to do? You expect a
Congress to
system
do
of
something? Come on.
rules and regulations to just go, we'll just let it go for a year or two and see what actually needs to be regulated. Maybe it's this ubiquitous product that we never could have imagined, that people just grow in their backyards. It just springs up. They call it ditchweed, and it just springs up by itself and it grows by itself, and nobody's ever died from it. And when people grow it, they like to give it away and trade it at, local, farmers markets. Maybe, it could be like tomatoes and apples, and people could just grow their own, and we really don't have to mess with it. Who knows?
Ideally, but
it's unfortunately you're talking about alcohol. And so, speaking of, there was just a case that came out this past week about how, and then you were talking, Kyle, about how we're treated differently here in this industry. And this is a prime example, and it came out of the Court of Appeals. Marijuana users cannot be banned from gun ownership. That's out of the Fifth Circuit, which is New Orleans based, but does include Texas. And so I did a video on it. It'll be posted to the channel later next week. Tune in for that. But it was a Connolly, Paula Connolly. Her husband, John, was shooting at the neighbors when a disturbance ensued and the cops showed up. And then so they did a sweep of the property because he was shooting a shotgun at his neighbors, John. But Paula had a stash, and then she mentioned that she uses it for sleep and anxiety. She is married to the guy who's shooting at his neighbor. May explain why. And so she said that she had a Second Amendment right to that gun, and it turns out, yes, she does. Yes, she does. And the reason is because she wasn't intoxicated at the time. And we have a long tradition of saying, okay, you can't have your guns in the bar.
Yeah.
But once you leave the bar, you can have your guns again. And so if she had been smoking weed at the time that her husband was firing his gun at the neighbor's house, may not have ended the same way. But she challenged these statutes. And these are the same statutes that when you try to buy a gun to defend your home grow or whatever, your family, for example, your stuff, as is your right as an American, you have to check a box saying you're not a current drug user. And it was that same statute that they were examining in this. And so that statute's being found to be invalid mostly, unless you are actively involved in the smoke. So you can't smoke a joint and shoot a guy, but you were not allowed to shoot a guy to begin with. So that's kind of the thing. Like, there's a difference between being intoxicated and having your right to bear arms curtailed versus having your right to bear arms curtailed. It's the principle.
It's precedent. It's precedent, right? Someone sets a precedent.
And it's precedent.
And sometimes precedent is set like for different reasons, right? Sometimes it's to keep people from going to, to defend yourself, right? And that's the problem, is that precedent in law never comes about unless something bad happens. It's almost like medical things moving forward because of war. We learn how to put people back together because they get blown apart.
Oh,
you
God.
know? And so
Yeah.
the only way we get like in California, there's still this law in the books that says you're allowed to grow, let me put my hand up, 6 plants. 6 plants, right? But so many precedents have been set to say that obviously everybody can't grow 6 plants and grow enough weed for themselves.
Mhm.
But even way past that, so many people have been arrested in California that there have been precedents set that said, I can grow 20 pounds of weed and I still don't have enough because I don't smoke it. I can't inhale the weed. I have to refine it down to just the keef, the trichomes.
Sure.
And I can only use the trichomes. So if I grow 25 pounds of weed and I get 5 pounds of keef or 2, 3, that might be enough for me for a year. And doctors have come in and set precedents to the fact that, so pretty much what I'm getting at now in California, if you have a smart lawyer, and anybody is stupid enough to fuck with you, you are allowed to do whatever is medically necessity for you, period. As long as you're not selling it.
Why California
as long as you're not transacting
you
it.
take the bar exam. Yeah.
What's that?
So this is why, I'm licensed to practice in several states, and there's only several states out of the 50 that require you to take their bar exam, and they're usually ones you're like, and California, Florida, Louisiana, because it's our only state that's a civil law and not a common law state because of its French ancestry. And I may be New York, but I think New York in the most few past years has actually kind of opened up to MBE qualifications. So like Florida and California, those ones you have to take the bar. And of course, Louisiana, maybe Texas. I'd have to check on Texas.
The whole thing goes back to Kyle's point, though, about how is this plant being always treated differently, the industry, right? Why are we creating a fucking law where you can have the fucking gun, but you can't shoot while you're smoking at the same time? Like, that's just
right.
Why? Do you have the same law for alcohol out there? We don't, right? They're not looking for cause and effect.
Again, because we haven't swallowed the concept that we're dealing with the first socially acceptable recreational medicinal substance. In all of humankind, there's never been another substance that had that resume, ever.
Well, I think alcohol is the closest to it. And so it's a corollary that we can use. And they are regulating it.
But alcohol doesn't cure. Alcohol doesn't cure lists of diseases and lists of ailments.
Correct.
They used to say and get away with saying it did, but it doesn't. So close, but no.
If you imagine it's 150 years ago, and so your wounds are problems back then, right? Like they didn't understand how to even wash their hands and shit. Alcohol is a disinfectant. Yeah. So it has a medicinal purpose. Your vodka has a medicinal purpose.
Damn
it
lawyer,
is a disinfectant. But the poison is in the quantity of the dose. The poison's in the dose of the drug. And that is true for any drug that you really use. The poison's in the dose. The dose for cannabis, you're going to put the joint down before you get anywhere close. Yeah.
Another difference.
Huge difference.
You can't kill yourself with it.
Yeah.
No, it's not toxic, right?
And I think they want that with but I think they want that. And by they, I mean the Republicans, the judgmental religious types want you were damned. You see, you knew, you saw, you fucked around and found out. You got a hangover because you were drinking. Yeah, exactly. It's all just crap. That shit. They believe. Yeah.
It's not based in reality. And like I said, so you ask, what would you do, Kyle, if you could pass the law? I would literally, my advice to the lawmakers would be to literally just be real with me for a second. Cannabis has been around forever. It's been in every high school that has ever existed. It's on every college campus that has ever existed. And Also, there's not an actuarial rate in any country, anywhere around the world that lists, they can't find one that lists cannabis as a death. So let's say, I'm not saying let's not regulate it. What I'm saying is, what I think you might want to do though is just stop arresting people give it a time period, 12 months, 24 months, 18 months, whatever you feel comfortable with. And kind of just study what happens, how the culture emerges, like I said, and then send agents out and have them take notes on what's going on. And then use history and use facts. There's a long history of cannabis use. Long it goes. I mean, I think it's back in ancient Chinese medicine.
Oh yeah.
Good. Yeah. So just use some of the history to form an opinion on how you should go forward on regulating it. But I think you need to do some observation first.
I got one for you guys. So if let's just say magic wand tomorrow they legalize it, everything's woohoo, celebration, 420 everywhere. Oh my God. What do you think will happen to the hemp industry? You know, like we are making progress slowly, right? With the whole there we go. But again, because like right now, like Home Depot just made it so they're not gonna piss test people, right? So the war on drugs, billions of dollars spent, plant's still winning. Right, Kyle, you said it earlier, like it took all this money, law enforcement, and still there was like always been this traditional market, and then you fucking legalize it. And now people are getting bombed out. But there are how we look at it. You know, that's
it's because we're too nice. We entered the world of sharks being nice hippies. And we felt like we were getting our way. Honestly, it felt like we were actually finally getting our way, but we weren't. And I don't really think that the maliciousness goes so far as that it was thought out as to how they could kill the industry. I might be naive in that thought. I think it was just symptomatic in the pushback of not wanting to be nice or capitulate. I don't think that it was that diabolical. That would be way too smart for those people. Sure. Way too smart.
Right now? Okay.
I think it was just it's an unfortunate evolution that we didn't foresee.
Like with this happening right now, right? So for the industry to exist, you got to have consumers. I was trying to spit out the words in my brain before it came out, or before I forgot them. But like, so they're recognizing like again, protections, workers' protections, consumer protections. You know, these guys are just workers that want to go to a job, and the attitude's changing toward what you pointed out earlier, Kyle, as far as why is it this one industry, the one, and again, being an advocate for so long, like, you know, the reason why I use a fake name, we all use fake names because like fucking other job opportunities and business opportunities, right? Like, oh, I don't want to be totally associated with this thing because
I can't always also prognosticate that the way that I, feel right now is actually going to come out the right way. My heart is in the right place and I want for the right things, but some, it doesn't, I can't always be right in the things that I stand behind, just like anybody else.
But you have the ability to understand, recognize that, and change, which puts you in the insular minority. And so, like, a lot of people just seem like they don't want to change. Your facts are not going to get in the way of what I know to be true. They kind of come from that ethos, which
yeah, you know what that starts out?
I'm talking to a brick wall. I'm talking to somebody who's not a person. I'm talking to a wall. Yeah. Tom,
you're giving me this platform. You know what? It starts out with the goddamn participation trophies. When I was a kid, you didn't get participation trophies. You went home and you cried because you didn't feel like you performed as well as everybody else. And you learned the harsh reality that that's the way life is. And that just because you have an opinion, it doesn't automatically validate it. Maybe you should think about it a little bit more. Maybe you should listen to valid opinions. And if you reason it, you'll realize that your opinion is actually invalid. There's none of that introspection. Everybody has a right to the game because they appeared. It's the participation trophy. I'm here. I have the same rights as everybody else. And you do, motherfucker. But we expect you to bring what they come correct. That's how we used to, come correct. Don't come with your bullshit walks, money talks and bullshit walks,
Right.
and I'm sorry to harsh y'all's buzz, but y'all are not coming correct.
With the traditional market,
But they don't want to. Well, like
then they can fuck off. They can beat
that's
feet,
right,
man.
They can
beat feet, and we'll go back to there'll be local dealers that will start becoming elevated and become celebrities because they're not worried about the fines that they're going to get if they get busted. So local dealers will go on fucking television. It'll take them 3 years or 4 years to ever find, the culture will evolve. I don't know how it will. What I just said is absolute nonsense.
100%. No, I think you're right.
But the culture will evolve, and so will the business. So will the business, and I don't know how that will happen either. This is what we're talking about, right? But what we would like is to see the culture and the industry merge. That's what the root of why would we have a show talking about this? Because it's not happening. If that was happening organically and naturally, and the people whose hearts are still in it, regardless if you like them or you don't, I don't know whose farm, which starts with an H that you don't like. There's several of them, people that have put in the decades, and even come from generational, like I said, that
ours are all corporate. Ours are all corporate out here. Like east of the Mississippi, no, there's no 3 generations in Humboldt and Peoria, Illinois. Come on, get the fuck out of here.
Don't try. So, if you don't bring somebody in, that you've just identified, because corporate it competes with corporate everywhere. As soon as it pops up somewhere, it's competing with everybody everywhere, and that's it, because there's so much corporate interest involved that are not going to bring in a Kyle Kushman to be your Tony Robbins when you're setting up your business, so that you can be insightful and empathetic to the decades and generations that have come before you when you name strains and when you call, it's just that is like not even Pollyannish. That's just fucking, that's just stupid. So
it's good business for
name their strains so that they can, like, oh my gosh, but it's so funny. So they try to brand their strains like at a corporate level, and so it's great. And so they'll have strains that are named, and then they're all basically a ripoff of some strain from California. But then they've created their own because it's their branded, and there's only like 10 publicly traded stocks, which is kind of cute. And so you can look at them and you can see what they're doing, and it's adorable. It's how corporations are run, but it's not necessarily how the industry is.
Part of me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. Again, there's just so many, there's 50 different fiefdoms, right? Each state has its own policy. And when we talk about culture, as someone who's been trying to advocate and based off of just like the writing part of it, that's why I did. I was online trolling, writing. And, when we talk about culture, it's just other Americans, right? It's like there's this middle ground of America. There's people who don't smoke or who are assholes, and there are people who are, do smoke and are assholes, right? And then there's just fucking people who don't care, whatever. But the point being is it's just your neighbor, right? There's nothing really special besides a secret handshake. Because back in the day that was a thing, you had to do that, but now you don't. I want to walk into a store and be like, yeah, can I get a quarter pound of fucking strawberry coffee? That's all I gotta get. Boom, no conversation. Because that was the other thing about traditional market. You walk in, you got to find a good grower. You got to find someone you trust, right? Because this guy's going to come pick up all the pounds, whatever. So there's a trust factor right there. And then, prices a lot of times weren't like a set list. As I've gotten old and worked in manufacturing, and I talked to my family who are in other roles in the industries, there's a price list. We are going to have a store. So there's going to be a price list that we're working with a grow. No matter what kind of relationship I have with a dude, there's never going to be a extra better deal. It's going to be like, hey man, this is it, pays for the bills. And then I'll be like, sweet, I got to pay it up. I got to mark it up so I can pay my bills. It's all fucking understood. You don't go on a goddamn liquor store trying to negotiate a fifth of alcohol or a fucking
man. I wouldn't trade I wouldn't trade all them backstreet car shifty, scary deals that I went through, for fucking vape cartridges back in my day for anything, like, the adversity that came every year with a drought just made me stronger. Just made me, when I figured out I could grow weed, it just made me more determined because I was never going to have a drought again. And I was going to see that other people that were close to me, they never had a drought either. See, it is not the same, and it never will be like that. So we all have to be smart and just simply realize we have to create a paradigm that is workable, that isn't dreamlike and isn't how we would have it if it was just kept in the public sphere. We have to create a paradigm that is, sympathetic to some of the legacy that went into it. It's not that hard,
No,
but I think we have to present that paradigm to the lawmakers going forward.
Well, I mean, who fought for alcohol, right? I mean, as a matter of fact, it's another 420 again. Time. You want to take a break? Like, really, who fought for alcohol? Like, there's no other industry thing out there, right? Alcohol was just money. People at the time.
No, alcohol, you see, it's a very interesting 18th, 19th, 20th Amendment. So about 100 years ago, we said it would be a great idea to get rid of drinking. And then we said, you know what else? We need to give women the right to vote. And then women had the right to vote, and men wanted to go out for a drink, but they weren't allowed to. And so they went out to a speakeasy, and there was a lot of murders. And so after that, there was a depression. And then they said, you know what? With this depression and my wife telling me who to vote for, I really need a beer. And so they re-legalized alcohol with the 20th Amendment. And so that gets to the real core of the problems. 100 years ago, like, you couldn't just say that I'm making a commercial regulation for interstate commerce and I'm banning weed. They had to make an amendment to the Constitution to ban alcohol. That Congress wasn't just able to say, like, you know what, we should do that. This is great. This is
Seriously.
I never quite thought of it that way.
But what's even
just
crazier,
saying,
how were people on the same page at one time, right? Like, we're such a divisive nation all the time. I don't think there's ever been like a kumbaya, we all fucking get along moment, right? Like, there's always been somebody with a stupid opinion that is in charge, unfortunately. But fuck, I just lost my thought.
Well,
hey,
I'll tell you what, I have a nature that could tend to be a fatalist. I don't think that I am. I think that I am an optimistic realist. And I think that things can still get better or worse. Like, we haven't gone over a precipice. I think that things can still get better, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Same.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they're actually getting better. It's just that they're changing. They would change more if everybody wanted to say, I just want to smoke a joint, man. Just like how, like, 30 years ago when they were like saying, I just want to have a beer. Like, look, my wife's telling me who to vote for, and she's canceling my vote. And evidently I've been fired from every job I'm going to be able to get. And it looks like I have to go back to war. So, like, can I get a beer, please? And so that, boom, they made a whole they made 3 constitutional amendments in the course of 10 years. We have not done that. When was the last constitutional amendment? 25th Amendment?
Oh my God, dude. Yeah,
it's
not in our lifetime. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure more bridges have fallen down than we've built recently.
Oh my God, that's so deep. That cuts deep, dude. Jeez.
It does. Almost as deep as the lack of free speech that you have when you are a cannabis license holder trying to advertise. Evidently, this Ohio company spent some money on free ice cream which got them a $200,000 fine from the regulators because they were not allowed to advertise ice cream for weed.
Just made up
Look,
rule.
I do this segment that we started that Nate Hammer started called Highlights at Home, and it's all filled with all of these products being pulled from the shelves all across the country. From it was tested in one lab, and then people took it home and they had it retested, or the state had, I don't know how, and it turns out that it has fucking heavy metals in it, or it's supposed to be a THCA product and it has Delta 9 in it. And these companies are just they're the majority of them, they just don't, they're just like every other company in America. The majority of them are only there for one thing. Where's my camera? They're on the dollar. They're there for the almighty dollar. And look, I like to make dollars too. But you know what? My grandfather, I think I remember, I was a little kid when he passed. I have 2 or 3 things I remember him saying to me. And one was, Adam, it's not so hard to make money in this world. It's harder to make money and feel good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a video about THCA flower and why I'm like, don't do that. And it has so much hate out of all the videos that I've done. Like that one has got a lot of hate at it because like I'm telling people to not do the THCA flower or hemp like that gets you high. Yeah. Because you are eviscerating our advancement toward regulating the plant and getting it out of this. And you're just pissing off the regulators because they feel like you lied to them, which you're lumping into back to us. And like, we have to follow all these rules and get all these licenses that you don't have to do. Yeah.
That makes, for all the time that you and I ever bought weed from somebody, there was a trust there, right?
Yeah, I understand.
There was a trust in that purchase. There was a trust, and to give that trust to somebody, to a corporation, to a multi-million-dollar company that you don't know that you're using as medication, whether you realize it or not, you're using it as medication, right? We all know that it's medicating. That's why we love it so much, and to just throw that money down on a table to brand A, B, C, or Z, Xerox, is just.
Well, you're, and that's part of the problem with like the fight of legalization, right? Everybody gets confused, especially non-consumers, because of the hemp and the marijuana conversation, and it's the same fucking plant that looks alike. Like if I see another fucking hemp Vana commercial on regular TV, and it uses a pot leaf as it's on regular TV, but it's fucking CBD, so it's okay, which it shouldn't be. But it's dumb because it dilutes the whole prohibition argument, which kind of helps, right? Like, hey, average people, these are the people we're trying to reach out to who don't consume. Like, look at this same fucking plant leaf thingy. Why? What is this THC?
You brought another thought to mind. Is it's this. Evolution thing, right? We all want to hear new music and we all want to taste a new flavor. We all, and cannabis, the way it is, it's just so old. It's so old school. It's just just roll it up in a piece of paper. It's so old. It's been done for thousands. It's just so old, and the new generation just has to find new ways. And it's, as you know, the new isn't necessarily better, and it's generally version 2 is not better. The original version is usually the best. And
kids do.
Yeah, but that's what I think is happening. It's the old. It's the natural. And so this natural marijuana is what's being rescheduled to Schedule 3. So it's all the old. And all this new stuff like Delta 8, HHP, C, TA, like anything that they're using hemp extracts to chemistry into something and then spray it on CBD flower they couldn't sell. That, I think, is going to get thrown to the curb and say, no, that's not hemp. That is synthetic weed. This is natural.
That's just the infiltration. Yeah. So before they infiltrated the cannabis industry, these chemists were producing designer drugs that you could sell at the gas station, even if it was only for 6 months or 12 months until they made it illegal.
Yep.
And they were selling all these salts and selling all these terrible, dangerous things that got people high.
Spice. Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. And so now they're finding ways to take substances that are 50 state legal, like hemp, CBD, things like that, and they can coat it with molecules that they have just created that are unregulated and get people all zooted out on it. And it's just an evolution of human instinct to punish your fellow man.
Well, again, spray tips are gross. Yeah, but buyer beware, right? This should be a thing that, like, why
consumer protection.
Well, that should exist.
That's the thing about regulation. Consumer protection. If you're selling an adulterated cannabinoid, that should be a crime. Because then
I'm with you, my friend. Sensible regulation is important in every aspect of life. Humans, we need just as sure as we need leaders. We can't all be our own leader. We need.
We can't all be our own regulator. Like, I'm sure that I would be a lot more fit if I had, like, you remember how Rocky didn't train himself? He had that old man that was telling him he's a bum and, like, go into the gym and, like, I can't remember his name, Mick or something like that. You need that kind of accountability. You need that regulator that's there, that's telling you what the rules are, holding you to account. But why does it seem like no other industry really has a regulator? They're like, we will self-regulate.
What? And you had Boeing. I mean, doors fall off shit when you self-regulate. So, like, there's a reason why there is, like, the EPA and stuff like this. That when cannabis becomes illegal,
but there is a model. If you look, cannabis has been a self-regulating industry for all of recorded time. And so if they just take a period of time and go back for 50 years and just look at the cannabis industry has always been there, and that the only suffering that has ever been caused from it, at least in a public health hazard type of way, other than it's all right there. You just have to analyze the data, right?
Well, you're talking about the culture, like the past thing that you.
But there's no other substance. But regardless of trying to be hippy dippy and crunchy and saying I've got a culture, there's no other substance on earth that has that resume, that has that history that you can bring into court as evidence, as actual evidence.
Yeah.
Again and again in every aspect. There's no other substance. So why are we here?
Right.
Prejudice. And that's the only answer. Like, when it's that bad and there's all the evidence on other sides, it's only the dogma and the prejudice of the lawmakers and the people that are putting up with it.
We got to start calling it out.
It's just their prejudice. Yeah. And,
we got to start calling it out for what it is.
Yeah.
Like concentrates are new.
No, concentrates are not new. Like, concentrates are old as shit. They're like, we've had guests on from the HBO, honey oil. What's the stuff that they were making from, like, Afghanistan, putting it in surfboards and importing it back in the 70s?
Oh, yeah.
BHO. Butane
Forever. Forever.
Yeah.
Hash. Thousands of years. Like, it's an extract. Hash is an extract, right? They just use water soluble.
Nobody's ever ingested a balloon full of it and accidentally died, or smuggled it and taken too much, done too much of their. It's just so. Look, you just can't come. It's its own category of a substance that exists. It truly should be ubiquitous. It should be as ubiquitous as milk and bread and cheese and butter and eggs and roses and tulips and tomatoes. It's ubiquitous because every human being on the planet can in some way benefit from it, whether they're smoking it or whether they're ingesting it or whether they're rubbing it on their hands or or making us living from it because it's such an easy to grow plant so that they can take care of their family. And so we could go round and round and round, gentlemen.
We've already gone around so much, and we wanted to thank you, for like joining us and like doing this. Was a kibitz, and like we pitched a lot of bitch and had a great time. But thank you for spending the time with us, and we could continue to go on. Can you tell the good people what you're up to these days and how they can get in touch with you so that they can interact?
I'm not too busy, but mostly I actually interact on Instagram, Kyle Kushman 420. Other than that, I have an email, Kyle Kushman at MSN. That's how old school I am. Kyle Kushman at MSN.com. Excuse me?
You have a seed company too, right?
I was going to mention it's not my company, but I've been representing Homegrown Cannabis, formerly Homegrown Cannabis Co.com for it seems like forever. I was talking with Dickie Patterson, the owner, the other day. I said it was 9 years, and he's like, it hasn't been that long. I'm like, yeah, we're going on 9 years that I've been representing, and we're still making lots of edutainment content. That's on homegrowncannabis.com, and they keep me busy with that. And I do lots of these podcasts whenever I can. And I hope I'm not forgetting it. Oh yeah, I'm growing in the Vertifarm. That's my latest experiment. We'll see what happens with that. And I just got back from the Emerald Cup. Unfortunately, that's not something I'm doing, but that was fantastic. And I am so behind the vibes and the feeling. People like to say there's no good weed there. Just because there's 300 entries doesn't mean that the top 10 or 20 aren't just fucking sticky, icky fire. Yeah. And so that was great. And we did the grow. Oh, I'm doing the Grow Show weekly, and we did a dozen episodes while we were at the Emerald Cup. So make sure you check out. It's not the Grow Show. It's Grow Weed at Home with Kyle Kushman, and that's on YouTube and Spotify and all that shit. So,
oh yeah,
sweet.
Thanks, dude.
Awesome, Miggy. Any parting thoughts before we wrap it up for the week?
We got a Reddit, and I just posted a link. So hey, there we go.
We got a Reddit, and so
I did something.
Go to our Reddit. That's exactly right. And so we're going to try to interact with our 260 people that are watching right now. And so if you have any tips, go to this Reddit that Miggy just shared on the channel, and then tune in next week. We'll have better links for that because it'll just be an average show. We won't have Kyle joining us, but Kyle, thank you so much for spending some time and for doing what you've done for the plant, man.
Thanks, you guys. Thank Tom and Miggy. I'll go back and look at those comments in a few days and see if there's any questions for me.
Cool. There, dudes.